part they missed. Okay, well, I can introduce Richie Olaka, who is a Rotary Peace Fellow, as you can see by his title slide, and we're really excited to hear from him. He's been in the Syracuse area and is getting ready to leave soon. And Richie, we're so glad that you could talk to us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we can take it up.
Yes, please do. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. My name is Richie Olaka. I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow, but I'm currently in the US on the Mandela Washington program, which is a department. It's a program by the Department of State. So basically, I'll be talking about how I've leveraged on my Rotary Peace Fellowship, which I did in Makerere, and how I've leveraged on that to build peace within the region that I live and work in, and how that looks like, and what are the peace prospects for that region, East Africa region, the Horn of Africa region, and the Great Lakes region. So just a brief bio about myself. So I work in the public sector. I've worked in the public sector in Kenya for 10 years now. That's about a decade. And I started off as an assistant county commissioner. That's like an administrative in charge of what we call a division back in Kenya within our administrative structure. Then transitioned to the State Department office at state functions. Then later on to the Department of Refugee Affairs, where I currently work. So within the Department of Refugee Affairs and Refugee Services, we serve around 900,000. I'm sorry, I wrote 90,000. It's 900,000 refugees from 25 different nationalities across the globe. So my educational background, I'm a sociologist, but I've also done degrees in peace building and conflict transformation, international relations, governance, peace, and security. But primarily, I did the postgraduate diploma in peace building and conflict transformation at the Makerere University Rotary Peace Center. And that's what really makes me a Rotary Peace Fellow. So, but then what is this Rotary Peace Fellowship about, and how did it come by? So again, the Rotary areas of focus, the different areas that Rotary really focuses on. And one of the Rotary Peace areas of focus is is building peace across the globe. And to build peace, they have a number of initiatives. They do so many things just to ensure that the world is a more peaceful place. And clearly, as Rotarians, you already know this. So promoting peace is one of the areas of focus that Rotary International is concerned with. And this is done through a multiplicity of ways. At club level, I mean, there are so many initiatives right across the globe in terms of how do you just ensure that you have built peace. So every year, but then for the Rotary Peace Fellowship, so every year Rotary Peace Fellowship trains 130 individuals from across the globe on peace and development related disciplines. And this is one of the things that I benefited from. So since 2002, the Rotary Peace Fellowship has trained over 1,800 fellows from 140 countries spread out across the world. And this is how the universities look like. So we have some in Europe, Uppsala in Sweden, Bradford, Duke. We have this one, Chulalongkorn in Thailand was closed down, but there's another center that is coming up in India. There's International Christian University in Japan. There's Queensland University in Australia, and so many other universities that Rotary is partnering with to ensure they teach these programs on peace and development related concepts. So in Africa, there's only one Rotary Peace Center, and that is Makerere University. It's in Uganda, and that's where I took my Rotary Peace Fellowship in Uganda. So how did my fellowship journey look like? So again, I was sponsored by the Rotary Club of Karura. That's one of the Rotary clubs in Nairobi. It's under District 9212, which covers Kenya, Eritrea, and Ethiopia and Djibouti also. So those fall under District 9212. And so the Rotary Club of Karura, because for you to become a Rotary Peace Fellow in the application process, you must be working with the Rotary Club, and the Rotary approached the Rotary Club of Karura, and they were gracious enough. They accepted to sponsor me for the Rotary Peace Fellowship in Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda. So how did the program look like? It was a 10-week on-site course. But this on-site course also had a lot of field visits. We visited Rwanda, and you may know the story with Rwanda and genocide and what happened there in 1994, where people there was a complete genocide against the Tutsi, which is one of the communities in Rwanda. But more importantly, we are looking at the post-conflict reconstruction. How has that country been able to pick itself after the conflict, and how are they faring on in terms of their justice systems, in terms of their service delivery? How do you pick yourself even after a conflict? So that entailed part of the visits, but also northern Uganda. In northern Uganda, there was this Lord's Resistance Army, which is a militia group that was wreaking a lot of havoc in that side. So the situation has since been controlled, security has returned, but then the scars of war, how do communities build themselves? And we are looking at what are the traditional mechanisms that the local people in those areas are just looking at in terms of to ensure they build peace and continue to forge a way forward in a way that's very resilient. Not, of course, knowing that there were challenges, but then how do you move even past those challenges that were there? So again, in Uganda, we're exposed to a lot of climate-related conflicts, for example, where we had people moving out of forests. We had places where people were experiencing mudslides, and how does that feed into the peace rubric for that region? And then we also taken through like places where like those mining and communities were forced to move out because of mining activities, and how does that look like, and what does that mean for peace and security of those communities. But more importantly, after the 10-week on-site course, of course, with the field visits, we had a 9 months social change initiative. This is where you go back to your home country and implement a social change initiative of your choice for 9 months, for a 9-month period. Then after the 9-month period, you come back for what they call a capstone conference. And in the capstone conference, you share about your social change initiative. How did you find, what were your findings in the field? How was your interaction with the communities and the people that you served with, not that you took out of this fellowship? So again, this is part of my activities, again in Rwanda and different places. And then so when I returned after the 10-week on-site course, I decided to choose an area social change initiative that entailed building dialogue with national government administration officers in Kenya on the positive peace approach to law enforcement. So in Kenya, unlike we have two structures of the police, you have what we call administration police and the Kenya police structure. But then at the helm, at the supervision, and at the coordination, the link between the policing agencies and the other security agencies and the people is a it's a quasi-military agency. They call them national government administration officers, which they are trained in security, but also civilian aspects. So these are the link between civilians and the policing agency. So I went to them and we were building dialogues. How do they inculcate concepts of positive peace? And these are concepts that I learned during the fellowship. So these are a photo of myself interacting with some of them and just seeing how we can ensure dialogues on positive peace, and how does that therefore feed into law enforcement within the country. So again, this is one of the other places that we were interacting with national government administration officers back in Kenya, and just looking at how we can build those dialogues and the concepts of positive peace. But then, so from this dialogue, what came about? So for me, the overriding achievement during the dialogue sessions I managed to train 113 national government administrative officers on the inclusion of positive peace framework into their law enforcement. So when they are serving the public, when they are serving their citizenry, when they are serving communities, how do they inculcate these concepts of positive peace? And then I also had 9 dialogue sessions with the officers who in turn committed to becoming ambassadors of the approach, meaning the positive peace approach that I learned during the Rotary Peace Fellowship. But then after the fellowship, then what next? Because once you become a Rotary Peace Fellow, it's not just a one-off thing. It's a commitment, just like the commitment of Rotary. I mean, this is an investment that Rotarians across the world, this is an investment that Rotarians have really poured into this Peace Fellowship. I mean, you can look at the amount of money that they spent on each fellow. It's a lot. What that means is your way of paying forward and giving back to the people who make the Rotary Peace Fellowship possible is continuing the journey of the fellowship to ensure that in your small way, in your little way, you're making positive impact within communities with which you're coming from. So after the fellowship, this how I've been engaged in terms of how do I carry forward the messaging, how do I carry forward the vision of the Rotary Peace Fellowship. So with knowledge that I obtained from the fellowship, I continue to vote for peace in the East Africa region. Again, let me just put the East African region in context. So in the Eastern Horn of Africa region, we have Somalia, which is a country that has not seen a stable government for now over 30 years, since 1992. There's been a lot of conflict in that country. The other country is Ethiopia. Ethiopia is facing clan and ethnic regional conflicts. The other country is Kenya. Kenya has had its issues with democracy, and just recently we've had young people on the street agitating for change. We had Tanzania. Tanzania has issues with declining democracy. Then we have countries like Uganda. Uganda has had a president, for example, who's been in power for now 30 years and is still going to vie for another an elective term of another 5 years. I don't know for how long he'll be there. The other countries, Djibouti, we are talking about the Congo, and all these countries are countries in conflict. So the question is, if you look at that region, it's very conflict ridden. It's a region with so much conflict. But then, how do you ensure that you carry on the vision of the Rotary Peace Fellowship amidst all these challenges? So it's about all of us, Rotary Peace Fellows and Rotarians and everyone really in whichever walk of life that someone is coming from, to do whatever they can do, their small bit, to ensure peace within the communities that they live in. So since the fellowship, and I was talking to Lizzie just before this meeting, I've published 9 op-eds, opinion pieces on leading outlets. These are outlets with a combined reach of about 5 million people. Again, unfortunately, newspaper readership is going low every day, but I'm also leveraging on digital media, for example. So we have, for example, KBC Digital and other digital platforms where every once in a while I try to put my expert opinion pieces and just see how you can intrigue people on the need to build peace, more peaceful communities that are more in harmony, and communities that coexist with each other in really a cordial way. And then I also write pieces on the environment, forced migration, refugees. I work within the refugee space, peace and security, and importantly on positive peace. But also I've been having speaking engagement with Rotary clubs across Kenya. So, for example, I've had 6 speaking engagements with the Rotary and Rotary clubs across the country, and also been part of Rotary activities, especially on refugees and asylum seekers. So, again, leveraging on my background working with refugees, I thought, like, what a better way to engage in this peace discourse. I mean, is there a better way than the people who actually know what it means to be forcefully displaced out of your communities, out of your countries, out of your nation, just because of war? I mean, 90% of the refugees, actually 90 something percent of refugees are fleeing conflict. Conflict's the main driver of these high spiking refugee numbers. So for me, I'm leveraging the Rotary Peace Fellowship to ensure I play my part in terms of how do we ensure the narratives of refugees and to build peace within the refugee community. So this is an example of some of the op-eds that I've done. This is one of the leading newspapers in Kenya. It's called People Daily, but I've also published with The Standard. I've published with KBC, Capital FM, and other leading media outlets in our country. These some of the engagements. For example, here it was with the Rotary Club of Hurlingham, which is one of the very vibrant Rotary clubs in Nairobi City. But then, so as I was saying, how am I taking my work into the refugee space? How am I taking the Rotary Peace Fellowship into my vocation? Because most importantly, it's about how do you find the linkage, how do you find the nexus, and how do you marry all that into this refugee space? So again, according to UNHCR, the Great Lakes region is the region I come from, the Horn and East Africa region of Africa. There are around 24 million displaced people within that region. About 6 million of these are refugees. In Kenya, we have 900,000 refugees and asylum seekers who come from over 20 nationalities. I mentioned earlier, precisely, they're actually from 25 nationalities. And most of these refugees have been protracted displacement. Somali refugees, for example, the collapse of Somalia was around 92. And there are refugees who came to the country seeking asylum in 92, 93, 94. And they've grown there, they've lived there. Some of them have become adults, some of them have established families. And there's no end to this refugee status, because being a refugee should be a temporal situation, hoping that the conditions in your country will stabilize and then you'll go back. But then it is what it is. The Congo has seen conflict for so many years, and Rwanda, Burundi, and so many other countries, and that is the situation. So with my skills from the Rotary Peace Fellowship, I've helped develop what we call the Shirika Plan. So Shirika is a Swahili word that means coming together. And this is a government-led initiative that's aimed at socioeconomic inclusion of refugees and host communities, and to transform refugee camps into integrated settlements for refugees and host communities. Again, this is one of the solutions to deal with the protracted refugee situation. So when you have refugees staying for so long, you have refugees staying for onwards of 30 years, how do you ensure you integrate them into the society, you make them feel included and part and parcel of that society? So the remedy for that was the Shirika Plan, which I helped develop. And in the Shirika Plan, I also brought great insights that I learned from this Rotary Peace Fellowship from the Rotary Peace Center of Makerere University. But also we interact with refugee-led organizations. The lady in yellow at that photo is actually the district governor of District 9212. And this was in one of the activities we had with one of the Rotary clubs, and visited a refugee-led organization that hosts urban refugees in an informal settlement of Nairobi. And here we just wanted to share the refugees, what we have, listen to them, and also see how Rotary and Rotary clubs can come in and help these refugee communities in the little way that they can, just to ensure that they live better lives. So for me, this is my take home. So fundamentally, it's about giving. It's about being grateful, number one, to the family of Rotary, because every year 130 fellows are sponsored to this Rotary Peace Fellowship. But then what's the dividend? Why should a Rotary Club, for example, commit part of its resources, part of the resources of members towards peace activities, supporting peace in places, for example, that maybe some Rotarians may never get a chance to visit, or may even, I mean, these are far-flanked areas. You can tell that there are 140 nationalities that have benefited from this fellowship across the world, across the continents, everywhere. But it's every time Rotarians and Rotary clubs and the Rotary Foundation builds and really allocates resources into this Rotary Peace Fellowship. This is the dividend, a living testimony of one of the dividends of the Rotary Peace Fellowship. And more importantly, is to, like, everywhere I go, everywhere I talk to Rotarians and Rotaractors, is number one, to give them, like, to show a lot of appreciation for what they are doing, to ensure that there are more of us Rotary Peace Fellowship and ambassadors of peace. And we hope that through our collective effort and the efforts of other people outside there, we're going to have a peaceful globe, a globe that is more harmonious, a globe that really is good for every one of us, be it female, be it male, be it child, everyone, irrespective of your religion, race, gender, ethnicity, nationality, all of them. We are looking at a world that is safe, sound, and fair for each and every one of us. So that's one of the dividends really that I took from this Rotary Peace Fellowship. So then what next? So how can I collaborate with, or how do I continue to collaborate with Rotarians and Rotaractors? So I'm looking at projects with refugee-led organizations. Again, studies have shown that, for example, when you fund big organizations, say a UN agency, the administrative costs can be high, but when you fund, just like in community development, if you fund like local CSOs, community organizations, these organizations that actually know their need, and the administrative costs become so little. So I'm looking at how do we ensure partnership with refugee-led organizations, and fundamentally Rotary partnerships with Rotary clubs. For example, in the earlier photo, we had an engagement at a refugee-led organization with one of the Rotary clubs in Nairobi, just to ensure that we bring the synergy. There are so many Rotarians and Rotary clubs that are willing to work with refugee-led organization. But it's not just about refugees. It's solving peace issues across the divide. It could be people living in informal settlements. It could be people with disabilities. It could be marginalized communities. I mean, minorities, and so many other diverse communities. So that's one of the areas that of collaboration that I'm looking for, and also academic partnerships. Clearly, like a lot of peace efforts have a gap in terms of academic partnerships. So I'm looking at a situation, how do you build into academy? So for example, the refugee situation and all these crises and everything has so much nuance, and sometimes possibly we don't have sufficient studies, especially within the global south. So I'm looking at academic partnerships just to ensure that that gap is really filled. So thank you so much. That has been my presentation. Asante sana. Asante in Swahili means thank you so much. Asante. I welcome any questions, comment. Lizzie, back to you. Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Can you say a little bit about why you think Kenya is so willing and welcoming to asylum seekers and refugees?
Yes. Actually, interestingly, Uganda hosts more refugees than Kenya does. So, but then it's not that the country is willing, it is just that the country finds itself in relative stability among nations that are experiencing so much chaos. So our neighbors are South Sudan, which is in conflict. The other neighbor is Ethiopia, which is in conflict. The other neighbor is Somalia, it's in conflict. Actually, our only peaceful neighbor is Tanzania. So when people are fleeing those countries, naturally they would move across the border to the nearest country. So it's not really about benevolence, but it's the necessary things and the most practical thing to do for most of these refugees.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Elise, oh, there.
Yeah, I have a question about languages. I know that there's a lot of different languages spoken. And do you come across, you're probably multilingual, but do you ever come across problems with people working with each other because of language and cultural differences?
It's true. So, for example, the third largest number of refugees we host come from the Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo. Democratic Republic of Congo, they speak French, they speak Swahili, and a couple of other local dialects. Then we have them in the same refugee camp with South Sudanese. South Sudanese speak what they call a dialect of Arabic. They call it Juba Arabic, and then they speak their local dialect depending with which ethnicity someone is coming from. But then these are people with very different cultures. So a lot of times when you have them in one camp, there's a lot of clash of cultures. And unfortunately, this even leads to violence sometimes. Part of the reason I'm taking this Mandela Washington Fellowship, the one I'm here at Syracuse for, we are having a focus, what they call focus project. And my focus project is I'm looking at how do I ensure that we have mediators within this community so that they have their own leaders, but then how do I train some of these leaders for mediation? So it's still at a concept stage. I'm trying to develop a concept and look around and see whether I'll get funding to ensure that at least we train, say, 30% of these community leaders, of course, being men, women, youth, and persons with disability, so that it's all inclusive and just to ensure. But as you rightly put it, for sure, like there's a lot of cultural difference. There's a lot of differences between even generations. You get older folks think very different from the younger folks, and so many cultural issues. For example, just before coming here, I was at Kakuma, which is the second largest refugee camp. We have two big refugee camps, Dadaab, and interestingly, Dadaab refugee camp is the second largest refugee camp in the world. It is only second to the one in Bangladesh that hosts the Rohingya refugees. So in Kakuma refugee camp, we were discussing about questions of teenage pregnancies and early pregnancies for teenage girls. And interestingly, one of our participants was of the thought that female genital mutilation is a solution to teenage pregnancies, which is just absurd. But that is the environment that we are working with. And so it's really challenging, but we are forging forward a step at a time.
Thanks
have a
for you. Thank you
question.
for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question, and I'm going to see if I could phrase it. So you were talking about Sharika kind of coming together
Yes.
with all these refugees, but how do the people from Uganda feel about all the refugees coming in? And do you also work with them to accept them, accommodate for them? How does that all work?
Yes. So Uganda interestingly hosts a higher number of refugees than Kenya, but the model that has been used in Uganda is very different from the model in Kenya. So in Uganda, they have an integrated approach where refugees are given small parcels of land and they can settle in those lands and farm. In Kenya, we've had what we call encampment policy. So that means if you seek asylum in Kenya, the first stop for you is either Dadaab, a refugee camp, or Kakuma refugee camp. You're taken to those camps, and people have stayed in those camps for years, 30 years, 20 years, unless your country is relatively stable and you have to go back, or you have what we call third country solution. This is when some countries in the West, America, countries in Europe would take certain quotas. But again, in the recent past, these numbers have been declining every day. Countries are taking fewer and fewer refugees. And the other one is local integration. But then for local integration, citizenship is a very hot political issue in Kenya. So we are looking at, instead of granting them outright citizenship, we are looking at how do we ensure systems that will integrate them socioeconomically. That means they should be able to work, but then this comes to the agency to work. Is it about education? Is it about skilling and all other things? But then fundamentally, the hosting of refugees in Kenya and Uganda all falls under the structure of IGAD. IGAD is the Intergovernmental Authority on Defense, which is an umbrella body for countries within the Horn of Africa region. And interestingly, most of these countries, while they generate the refugee crisis, they also host refugees from each other. It's a very funny relationship. So under IGAD, there are a lot of efforts that are geared towards ensuring synchrony in terms of refugee management. And of course, the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees, really comes in, and it's a big player. They set a lot of policies, and we follow a lot of templates from the United Nations High Commission on Refugee, UNHCR.
I find it interesting that you kind of integrate them to your society by giving them plots of land instead of putting them in a place altogether, like the difference between Uganda and Kenya.
Yes. Now, I come from Kenya. So, but then in Uganda, that's where they give them plots of land. In Kenya, they are still put in refugee camps. So it's a stark difference. I'm not sure how Uganda is able to do that, but part of the reason will be that around 90% of Uganda is arable. So they have a lot of arable land. Kenya, less than 30% of the land is actually arable. So you'll find a lot of population on the arable side. And where the refugee camps, they're actually semi-arid areas. And when they are put there, they're left at the mercy of donors. So you have UNHCR, you have World Food Program, you have different embassies across the world, the Danish embassy, the American embassy, and so many other international agencies and governments that take care of their food, education, healthcare, and all these other needs at those refugee camps.
No.
Yes, this a hand seller.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Sela. I'm also from Kenya, and I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow. I just wanted, Richard, first to thank you for sharing. And I was wondering if you could also share the role of Rotary, and particularly Rotary Peace Fellows in refugee management in Kenya and beyond. We've also had a few stories from Uganda, just so that the Rotary Club can also, appreciate generally the role of Rotary International, but particularly the foot soldiers, in this case, the Rotary Peace Fellows on the ground and what they are doing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sela. And Dr. Sela is actually our president for Rotary Peace Fellows within the African continent. So as she rightfully put it, like as Rotary Peace Fellows, there's a lot that other fellows are doing in terms of just this refugee space, but not just the refugee space, in so many other domains that fellows work in. So the Rotary Peace Fellowship cuts across professions. You get people in agriculture, you get people in healthcare, you get people in education, literally people in business and all vocations. But then what we do within this refugee space, for example, we host dialogue sessions from time to time, where we have robust discussions and robust engagement on refugee management policies. And interestingly, some of the Rotary Peace Fellows are actually refugees, so they have lived experiences. So we just tap into their knowledge sources and see how that discourse can be put into making sure we have more responsive and more informed refugee policies. So Rotary Peace Fellows across the continent, across the globe, actually doing so much within this refugee space, as it were. And Dr. Sela, maybe you can chip in maybe for a minute, and if there's anything I've left out.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know they actually engage actively with Rotary Peace Fellows, or if they would like a small brief on who those are.
I'm sure. Yes, Lizzie?
Was
If-
that a question for me?
Yes,
Yes.
I was just wondering whether your club has interacted, supported Rotary Peace Fellows, or would you like to know just a little about who Rotary Peace Fellows are?
So our district is absolutely on board with supporting a Peace Fellow. We have had them in the past from our region. And I would love if you could talk about that a little bit, especially for those who aren't here and will watch this video, so they can learn a little bit more about the process of how we would go about sending someone to this program.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So all Rotary clubs around the world give contributions to Rotary International, and Rotary International does support several programs, our 6 areas of support as Rotary, but one of them particularly is around peace, promotion of peace around the globe. And one of the activities under this area is actually supporting fellows who are actively participating in the promotion of peace from different parts of the world to attend Rotary, what we call Rotary Centers of Excellence. These are now 7 universities in different parts of the world, including 2 in the US. We have Turkey, which is our latest Rotary Peace Center. We have one in Asia, in Thailand. We have one in Uganda, Makerere University, and some in Europe, the UK, and so on. So we take people who are practitioners, and they get to attend these centers of excellence to learn more about the theoretical foundations of the work they are doing, but more importantly, to network with other peace practitioners from different parts of the world so they can exchange lessons and also share ideas on how they can better the work that they are doing. Now, as a Rotary Club, Rotary International has provided you an opportunity to support someone within your area whom you think is working on promoting peace, but may need that time away from work or may need more knowledge on what they are doing. And so every year, Rotary gives about 100 fellowships to different peace practitioners. So we can talk more about this on how particularly your club can identify and support somebody, endorse somebody from around you who you think can come back to your community and give more in terms of peace work around you. But that's what Rotary Peace Fellows are about. We are people from different parts of the world who have been supported by your money. It may be direct. You may directly support somebody as a club. In other words, get your own kitty locally at your club. But even if you don't do that, the money you give to Rotary International is actually what eventually supports all the other Rotary Peace Fellows from Africa, from Asia, from all the other parts of the world. So we are really proud to work with Rotary clubs to share with you whenever you need anything in terms of peace building. Please always reach out like you did with Richard or with any one of us, and we'll be available to share and support. And sorry, I'm not on video because of bandwidth issues.
Thank you. Maybe any other question?
Nancy, it looks like you're talking, but I don't think anyone can hear you.
Can you now hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Yes, thank you. No, I was just asking if there's another question.
I'm sorry, Richie, that wasn't for you. I saw somebody else speaking, so I was trying to let them know that we couldn't hear them. But
Oh.
thanks so much, Sela, for your input.
You're welcome.
Richie, I would like to know how you did with those police officers and whether or not they were like it was required for them to be there, or were they there voluntarily?
It was actually voluntary, but interestingly, before coming to the refugee space, I also worked within that system. So it was so easy for me. So I just leveraged on my earlier experiences working within the security sector. I have a background in security. I worked for about 3 years within that system. So it was so easy for me. Interesting. What is the way I work with UNHCR? Just in a question on the chat. What's the way we work with the UNHCR as Peace Fellows in my government role? So again, I wear 2 hats as a Rotary Peace Fellow, but then formally I work with the Department of Refugee Services, which is the government agency tasked with the management of refugees. And for sure, within management of refugees, UNHCR is a big player. They set the agenda. They do actually most of the protection, and they also do liaison and coordination with other UN agencies. So there's a World Food Program for food assistance, whether it's IOM for migration issues, and all other UN agencies and other partners, especially international and governmental actors. So they do a lot of coordination with that. But fundamentally, it's governments that host host nations that host refugees. So within this refugee space, we collaborate a lot with UNHCR. So it's really a symbiotic relationship. We work hand in hand with UNHCR in terms of management of refugees in the country. In terms of how Rotary partners with UNHCR, again, the way Rotary is structured, so you get different clubs doing different projects. So I'm not sure if there's a Rotary club that's directly implementing any project with the UNHCR, but Rotary clubs for sure are welcome to have any engagement within refugee communities, whether it's urban refugees or refugees in our camp setups. Sure.
So you said that this is an ongoing process. Sorry about that. You said it was an ongoing process, and obviously it is with all of the activities that you're involved in. What do you see as your long-term role going forward? Is that something that you can do for long-term, or you have to look for other employment at some point, or you can, is it possible to translate this into something that's a long-term profession?
As a Rotary Peace Fellow, I mean, this a lifetime thing. It's like there'll always be conflicts, and there'll always be, I mean, provided human societies exist, there'll be conflicts. So being a Rotary Peace Fellow for me, it's a lifetime. I'm looking at later on, maybe in terms of transitioning this into a registered organization that I can partner with Rotary clubs and other partners just to ensure I carry forward. So from this fellowship that I'm taking here in the US, part of the things, and I'm developing a concept, I'm trying to look at mediation as an entry point, where we have mediation training for mediators within the refugee camp leadership structures. So I'm still doing the concept and trying to look at opportunities for funding and people and partners, so I can come and walk along with in this journey, just to ensure that We get more trained mediators within the refugees and host communities themselves, and if that and how that therefore goes into de-escalating lots of conflicts, and how we can even grow that into counseling, psychosocial support, not just for the refugees and host communities, but also for the people who work within those spaces. Because I mean, you can imagine someone interviewing refugees and they come with very gory stories. Some of them are the only survivors in their family. Every other person had been killed in the conflict, and it takes a toll both on the refugee and the person listening to these stories. So maybe I'd want to grow it to psychosocial support, but for starters, you have to start somewhere. For this, I'm starting at mediation, and interestingly, in the Rotary Peace Fellowship at Makerere University, they partnered with Mediators Beyond Borders International, and we were certified as community mediators through the Rotary Fellowship.
You said
Hi.
with the Mediators Beyond Borders International, and we're going to try to have our first class coming up here in the next couple of months. So I'm really excited to hear that. Thanks.
Interesting. Thank you.
Hello. I'd like to share. When I first heard that Rotary Peace Fellows was a thing, I was amazed by all that Rotary Peace Fellow will do. I imagine them being saviors and heroes, and there's something divine about hearing that this thing, these schools, these people exist. So thank you for all that you do. I had a question. Is there like a common denominator that you see in your conflict resolution and your peace building work, that you see a common denominator where people unite, and especially in a world that's so divided? Did you see like something that brought everybody together?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of commonality. And when you interact with people in conflict settings, you find that overriding all those superficial layers, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's gender, whether it's race, I mean, everyone is just in the pursuit of happiness. Everyone wants a good life. Everyone, if it's a mother, all they want is food, bread for their children, and just a safe environment. And for me, that's what's overriding, irrespective of whether you're coming from which nationality, which race, which ethnicity. Really, for me, that is the overriding principle, humanity. Like when you interact with these people, hear their stories, after all the divisions and everything, really humanity is at the core of all these communities. Sure. Maybe I can return the mic to Lizzie.
Yeah, this is Elise, you're on mute if you're talking. We can't hear you.
Yep, I was trying to talk because Nancy couldn't talk, and then I was on mute. She asked in the chat, how do you keep a healthy balance with this challenging work? I think that's a great question.
Yes, I mean, it's also like just like having fun. Like, for example, when I'm in the US, I've like gone out swimming. I have taken tours. Like I've ensured, like I always, almost, it's work, yes, but whenever I get a chance to, I let loose and go and have some fun. I mean, very important.
Could I say something? Hello.
Of course.
Oh, okay. So that's a very good question. Keeping a healthy balance between, peace work especially looking at what we are confronting in the conflict scenarios. And this applies to what Richard earlier mentioned, that most of the impact of conflict is actually based on like collective trauma. So when he talks about looking at psychosocial support as one of the key aspects to address the issues we are confronting, I want to support him and say that's very important, not only to the victims of conflict, but also importantly to the peace practitioners, because sometimes we kind of ignore or think that people who are actually going through conflict are the ones who are more affected by it, other than the ones supporting them. But there's also secondary trauma, and there's also just work-life balance, where you are a Rotary Peace Fellow, you are a government officer, you are a father, you have all these things, that you have to address. And so having a healthy, balance is very crucial. So thanks, Nancy, for that question.
Elise, you want to wrap this up? Take us home?
Sure, I can. I think I speak for the group. I really have appreciated this presentation, and it's been great to get to hear from you, for Richie, and for Stella, for your contributions, and our other guests and the questions. This has been very informative. It makes me glad of my Rotary participation to be part of an organization that does these kinds of things and has a goal as large as trying to help bring peace to the world as one of our core missions as an organization. So I really appreciate the work that you do, and also for taking your time out to present to all of us. Anything to add, Lizzie, or anybody else? There's Nancy. As others have said, we're grateful for your positive peace work in the world. And we're honored to hear your stories. Thank you so much. I feel very humbled hearing about the work that you've been doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Thank you for the opportunity to share. I look forward to I hope there'll be other opportunities for collaboration and just sharing on the amazing work that this club and all Rotarians are actually doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks for setting
Take
this
care.
up for us, Lizzie.
Safe travels home, Richie.
Thank you.
Got about a week left, I think, in Syracuse, or actually just a few days, right?
Just a few days. I'm actually traveling on Sunday afternoon. But on Wednesday, we'll be visiting New York to see the Statue of Liberty and all those nice things in New York City.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, well, safe travels and thank you. And
Yes.
as we get involved in MBBI, that might be a great opportunity to get back in touch and maybe have some collaboration with that as we start learning about that program.
Sure. And you can always reach out. I don't know, maybe put my email on the chat.
Well, I've got your email anyway.
Yeah, we
were
have
in
your
touch,
email.
So, yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
thank you so much.
Yeah. Take care, everyone.
Good night.